Welcome, Senator Utke. Whenever you're ready, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. First thing I would like to do is offer the A1 amendment.
Senator Utke offers the A1 amendment. All those in favor signify by aye. Aye. The motion does prevail. Go ahead.
Thank you. And I had a little bit of information here on the A1 amendment, so I will throw that in. But just to let you know, with Senate File 1756, the A1 amendment was stakeholders, including the Board of Teaching, the co-chair of the Career and Technical Education Task Force, Ed Allies, and Teach for America worked together to get the legislation to a good place. The amendment addresses conflicts between laws and rules by creating needed definitions, outlining qualifications of alternative certificate providers, and establishing requirements for programmatic approval. This amendment also brings the bill into alignment with Chair Pratt's tiered licensure legislation. So that's, I just wanted to kind of give you a quick brief of why that amendment came about, and it was due to the licensure bill last week. To the bill, in the face of the stagnant educator diversity and growing teacher shortages, especially in greater Minnesota, and the science, technology, and engineering and math fields, our state must invest in new and innovative ways for Minnesotans to obtain a professional teacher license. Currently, there are only two ways an educator can obtain a professional teaching license: through a licensure versus via portfolio, or two, through a college or university teacher preparation program. In 2011, Minnesota developed a new pathway to teacher certification, which we call alternative teacher preparation. But complicated and convoluted language in the alternative certification laws has prevented good programs in other states from finding their way into Minnesota, and has deterred innovative educators right here in Minnesota from creating homegrown options. We fixed these laws in the first part of this bill. In other states, alternative programs have worked to revolutionize teacher preparation to fill the needs of communities and the workforce. For example, Texas Education Service Center is a one-year statewide cohort for teachers certification designed for professionals who already have education, work experience, or industry licensure in a content area and who would like to become professional career and technical education teachers. Alternative pathways to teach licensure also increase teacher diversity. The Relay Teacher Residency Program has 65% African American and Latino teachers. Urban Teachers, located in 25 states, has 55% teachers of color. New York Teaching Fellows has 66% teachers of color. The New Teachers Project has 49% teachers of color and 39% multilingual teachers in Massachusetts. And Teach for America has 50% teachers of color nationwide. Considering that just 4% of Minnesota's educators are people of color, compared to 30% of our students, it's clear that we must learn from and replicate these programs. Expanding career and technical education programs and increasing teacher diversity increases high school graduation rates for our most underserved kids and closes achievement gaps, resulting in greater economic productivity and prosperity for the state. This bill joins other efforts in investing in innovative teacher preparation programs to incentivize and strengthen new pathways to the classroom. The grant is designed as a first-come, first-served investment in alternative preparation programs that can show they can curb teacher shortages and increase teacher diversity. Mr. Chair, at this time, I would like to call on Mr. Crossan to testify, and we do have, if we want to have Ms. Kozlik join us up here,
that would be great.
Get the first couple testifiers started.
That would be perfect. Welcome back to the committee. Go ahead and start whenever you're ready.
Thank you,
Please
Mr.
state your name again for the record.
My name is Joshua Crossan with Ed Allies. I'm here to thank Senator Utke for this underlying legislation, and we are here to support it. As the Senator mentioned, in 2011, Minnesota adopted a law aimed at creating alternative pathways for prospective educators. Over these last few years, the Board of Teaching and Advocates have found some inconsistencies and problematic language in the alternative certification law, preventing alternative teacher preparation providers from taking root right here in Minnesota. We support this legislation because it works to clean up our current laws by making them consistent with licensure rules. It also sets up alternative teacher preparation programs as peers of traditional higher education institutions. This legislation is a true collaboration between the Board of Teaching and advocates, such as as the Senator mentioned, the co-chair of the Career and Technical Education Task Force, Troy Haugen, who has a written testimony for the record, and I think maybe in your files, as well as Teach for America and other successful programs in other states that would like to be right here in Minnesota. As we work to broaden and improve the teacher talent pipeline as part of our comprehensive effort to curb teacher shortages, improve teacher diversity, and allow non-teacher professionals to use their diverse career experiences as new professional educators, we must be willing to make meaningful investments in new and innovative pathways that can work to move the needle. These investments work in collaboration with the dollars already committed to strengthening our traditional teacher preparation programs. These investments go into the Collaborative Urban Educator Program and Grow Your Own, which are remarkable programs that we think that this program can work in collaboration with. School leaders have attested that our teacher shortages will take an all-hands-on-deck approach to recruiting and retaining diverse educators. This will only add to our statewide efforts. And with that, I would thank you, and I'll be around for any questions.
Thank you, members. We'll go through all the testifiers again and then take questions. But if you're around, we'd certainly welcome one later. Go ahead whenever you're ready.
Hi, Mr. Chair, members. My name is Mary Koslig, and I'm the Director of Alumni Strategy and Impact for Teach for America Twin Cities. Teach for America works in partnership with communities to expand educational opportunities for children facing the challenge of poverty. Founded in 1990, Teach for America recruits and develops a diverse core of outstanding college graduates and professionals to make an initial 2-year commitment to teach in high-need schools and become lifelong leaders in the effort to end educational inequity. We have been operating in Minnesota since 2009 as a nonprofit and proud member of the AmeriCorps National Service Network. And 36% of our graduates locally identify as a person of color or coming from a low-income background. Nationally, our 2016 Corps of Teachers reached 50% people of color, 48% Pell Grant recipients, and 34% being the first in their family to graduate from college. We believe supporting many different and rigorous pathways to the classroom, including alternative, conventional, and non-conventional, will serve to broaden the access to the profession and increase teacher diversity, as well as improve student outcomes. And that's why we support Senate File 1756, because we believe it provides a necessary state investment to encourage programs such as ours and others to actually apply for unit approval, as we haven't yet seen in our state. This bill truly has been a collaborative effort between many stakeholders, including the Board of Teaching, Ed Allies, Lakes Country Service Cooperative, and Teach for America. We would consider very seriously our ability to seek unit approval if this bill were passed, which would create the long-term sustainability necessary to expand our program both in core size and geographic area. We would welcome other organizations serving in high-need schools or geographic shortage areas to apply for unit approval as well to promote and serve educational equity across our state. I thank you for the opportunity to testify.
Thank you for your testimony. Looks like next up we have Cindy Christ and Dr. Misty Sato. Welcome to the committee. Just state your name for the record before you get started, and go ahead whenever you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Member Cindy Christ with the Minnesota Association of Colleges for Teacher Education. Well, I find myself being in essentially the same position I was in about 2 hours ago in the House. I came with prepared remarks to identify some concerns in the bill, and most of those concerns have been addressed in the author's amendment. So I was very pleased to see that. So I just have 2 brief points I want to make before turning the mic over to my colleague. First, I just want to say that while we were disappointed to see higher ed removed from any role with alternative programs, given the knowledge, experience, and expertise we have to offer, We recognize the value of innovation in the design and delivery of teacher preparation programs, and we know that all of the creative ideas don't reside within our colleges and universities. What we believe the key is, from a state and licensure perspective, is to have all providers and programs held to the same high standards in terms of what they're expected to deliver and the outcomes of that delivery, including data reporting. Here's where the new language in the A1 amendment would help accomplish that. So there are 3 specific points I was going to call out in this regard, but I don't need to now because they've all been addressed. I do want to make one more point, however, and that's regarding the proposed grants. Since the purpose of the grants as they're outlined appears to be addressing teacher shortages, both in terms of teacher diversity and licensure shortage areas, why not make any approved providers eligible for funding, since this is a problem across the system? Since presumably only the most promising proposals would be funded, why potentially spend funds to create new programs rather than directing funds where they are likely to have the greatest impact, which could be in existing programs? And that may be a broader issue if and when this is combined into an omnibus bill, because I do recognize, as Mr. Crossan said, that there are other places where there's funding focused on teacher shortages and diversity in Senate File 4. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Go ahead whenever you're ready. Just state your name for the record, please.
Thank you. My name is Misty Sato. I'm a faculty member at the University of Minnesota Twin Cities campus. I'm also, our institution is a member of the Minnesota Association of Colleges of Teacher Education. So what I'd like to do is just dispel a couple of myths that have existed in our discourse and our discussion around alternative licensure programs in Minnesota for the past 5 or 6 years as we've struggled through this issue. The first one is that what I just heard reported was that Minnesota has only 2 ways to become a teacher, the traditional pathway and the portfolio process. This notion that alternatives is a new way of preparing teachers is a long-held myth in the state. We know in our educational research literature and across the nation that alternatives have been available for over 2 decades across the nation and here specifically in Minnesota. And this language of alternative versus traditional just creates more confusion and inaccuracy in our language and in the way that we recruit people to come into a preparation program. The Legislative Auditor's Report showed that there are over 600 pathways, 600 different distinct programs in which people can participate to become a teacher in Minnesota. At my own institution at the University of Minnesota, we have undergraduate programs that license music teachers and agricultural education teachers. We have 5th-year programs that license elementary teachers. We have graduate programs that license all different subject areas in the secondaries for career changers who come in out of the science fields. We have residency programs. Since 2011, alternative licensure bill was passed. We have residency programs with Minneapolis Public Schools that are year-long in the classroom, on-the-job training for teachers from Minneapolis schools. We certainly have the partnership. We're the only alternative providing partnership with Teach for America. And we have paraprofessional programs with District 916 and a program that we can't even name as one of these categories because it is both paraprofessional and multilingual and bilingual immersion teachers of record. So the alternative language is difficult for us to abide by when we have all these varieties of ways to prepare teachers. And the existing law basically was designed to meet the Teach for America program design and thus contributed to some of the convoluted language because not all people who wanted to do alternative programs wanted to use that very same criteria as the Teach for America model. Rather, we chose the non-conventional programming expectations that the Board of Teaching has. So with this amendment, we can see now that alternative really means providers that are not universities and colleges. And that is a welcome, we welcome those people into the community of teacher preparation. The other myth is that higher ed opposes alternatives, but you can clearly see that we do not oppose innovation. We do not oppose alternative preparation models. But what we would like very much to ensure that Cindy has identified is that all pathways into preparation for teachers are held to the same standards for approval, for granting processes, and for the expectations that the candidates coming out of all of those programs are held to the same expectations. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your testimony. And with that, members, we will open it up for questions for either the testifiers or Senator Utke. Members, questions? right. Seeing none, do you have any closing comments, Senator Utke?
Not really. It's just, it's just another way we hear a lot about the needs that are out there, and we hear that maybe we've got some of these things already in the system, but the fact is people are still asking for it. So creating, we don't want to be just replacing or doing the same thing, but just another way to get the message out there, another avenue for them to fill some of these vacancies. We've got a lot of needs, so if this can help, it's a great step. So I appreciate all the testifiers and everybody listening to all the information we had to provide.
Thank you, Senator Utke. Senator Utke moves that Senate File 1756 do pass the committee and be referred to the Committee on Education and Finance. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Senator Utke.
Thank you.
We're going to take just a brief recess. Senator Eichhorn had to step out of the room for just a moment, and I think he'll be back in just a second. Okay, we'll come back to order. Next on the agenda, we have Senate File 1281, Senator Eichhorn.
All right, thank you, Mr. Chair. Give me just a second to get myself together here. All right, in front of us is Senate File 1281. And what this would do is similar to what PSEO does, and this would allow students attending a public school to attend a non-public school for up to 1/3 of their day and also receive credit for those courses. Under this, the pupil would be ineligible for non-public aid. This keeps the money at the school district. So it's pretty simple. I do have a couple testifiers with me, but before they get started, I do have an A1 amendment.
Sorry, Senator Utke moves the A1 amendment. Senator Utke, can you just describe the amendment very briefly?
Certainly. It's just a little bit of cleanup language, and after talking with Mr. Uni, one of the concerns was that the courses could potentially be used for religious-based courses, and so on page 1, line 12, after or before course, we would insert the word non-secretarian to clean that up a little bit, and then the other piece is just clean up on page 2, line 6. We would just delete the word district at the very end of the line there.
Okay, Senator Utke moves the A1 author's amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Did I cut him off?
All right, so with
Senator
me now.
I'm sorry, Senator Eichhorn. You guys look so much alike.
All right, with that, I do have a couple testifiers with me here today. First, I have Jay Jensen. I'm going to turn it over to him.
Thank you. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and begin when you're ready.
Thank you, Senator Pratt. My name is Jay Jensen. I'm the director of North Star Christian Academy in Alexandria, Minnesota. And I want to thank each and every one of you for the service that you provide to the students and children in our state. I'm here because, like you, I love kids. I have 6 of my own, ranging from 35 down to 15, and we've taken full advantage of the myriad of different educational options for children within our state. Everything from public school, homeschooled, We've had them in private school. We've done some in online school, undergraduates as well as graduate education in the state of Minnesota. So again, like you, I continually ask, what is in the best interest of our students? As I share the details of this bill, I trust you will see that it is a win-win-win situation, first and foremost for students and families, but also for non-public schools as well as for public school system. The focus of the bill is to provide students another choice. Options are important to Minnesota high school students preparing for college and careers, from post-secondary education to college and school, advanced placement to shared time. Minnesota has a long history of offering choice and flexibility within the public education system. Our public schools are stronger and our students are better prepared for life after graduation because of the breadth and depth of options students are currently made available within the high school. Under current law, non-public students and homeschool students can take classes in the public school for part of their day. Public students are eligible for religious release time, but not credit for classes in non-public schools. Public school students can take PSEO classes at a variety of both public and private institutions for credit. Students readily transfer between public and non-public schools, and they do indeed accept each other's credits. Under Senate File 1281, public school students would be able to take classes at a non-public school for part of the day and receive credit. The student family are responsible for the cost of the non-public school, and public dollars would stay within the public school district. Districts must grant credit for the successful completion of the course, as well as the credits are counted towards their graduation requirements. The student does not generate non-pupil public aid. Essentially, as it relates to funding, the public school districts are neutral. No pupil unit funding will be affected by expanding the students' options in this way. The public school district collects full ADM for the public school student taking a non-public class. And essentially, the district could gain students under this expanded option where homeschoolers or private school full-timers might select to have their enrolling school be the high school and take just a select few classes from that private school. Benefits of the proposed bill: students will benefit obviously because they'll be able to attend classes at a non-public school during the school day and receive credit for their efforts. Families will benefit from enhanced freedom of education choices. Public schools will effectively fill their important role of being the great economic equalizer and social unifier. And Minnesota will benefit from the unity developed by our children learning and growing more together. At this time, I'd like for Mr. Anderson to share a letter that we've received from a parent who's currently attending North Star Christian Academy.
Thank you. Chairman Pratt and Senators, thank you for allowing this time. My name is Keith Anderson. I'd like to read a letter from a gentleman in Alexandria who was unable to attend. Hello, my name is Craig Olson. I live in Alexandria, Minnesota, and my son Parker is in the 10th grade at Alexandria Area High School. We have a very good public school, but by law, our public school is not positioned to include discussions regarding my values or my worldview. Please don't take this as a complaint. In fact, I believe that is how it should be. With the many diverse values and worldviews we have in Minnesota, it seems unworkable for the public schools to host such discussions. Last fall, the North Star Christian Academy opened its doors. North Star is providing the opportunity to discuss many of the big questions in life and the exploration of different worldviews. I strongly support my child having the opportunity to see the world from other points of view that the public school is unable to teach. I asked Parker to look into this opportunity. Last semester, he decided to give it a try, and this semester he has invited 3 friends to join in the discussion at North Star. I believe that having the foundation of a solid worldview is important, and to my delight, so does Parker. Parker is currently taking these classes through religious release time, but his graduation requirements will not allow this to continue. My request is that you would provide a pathway for Parker and other students like him to receive credit toward public school graduation when attending a non-public school part-time. Thank you for your consideration. Signed, Craig Olson.
Are there any questions for the testifiers? Yes, Senator Clausen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a question about your curriculum. Are your courses aligned to the Minnesota State standards?
The courses that we have currently that were offered, we have not measured them against Minnesota State standards. We're only offering them through religious release.
Senator Clausen.
So you'd be offering courses that are not aligned to the Minnesota State standards that public students could take, and then they'd be taking the MCA exams to evaluate whether or not they had met those standards.
Thank you for the question, Senator. No, in fact, we are set up today as a religious release facility. We know that currently our school does not qualify under state standards to be considered a school under the guidelines of what constitutes a non-public school. If this bill were to pass, we're prepared to do everything we need to do to fall in line with what the state requires for being considered a non-public school.
Yes, Senator Clausen.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. So I'm still a little bit confused because all public students, our curriculum is aligned to the Minnesota State standards. As you've explained, your courses are not aligned to the Minnesota State standards. And yet we'd be testing those students in a public school setting. I assume you do not give the MCA exams to your students?
Currently, no, sir.
Okay. So we'd be evaluating our students taking your courses, but you're not aligned to the curriculum that's being taught, which I find to be somewhat problematic.
Thank you again for the question, Senator. Today, we are not aligned with Minnesota State standards to be considered a school, nor are the courses that we're offering today intended to be in line with what is considered to be Minnesota Department of Education standards. These courses have been developed specifically for the purpose of religious release time. If, in fact, this bill were to pass, we understand what the rigor would be in regards to being accredited as a non-public school in the state of Minnesota, and we will do everything that we need to become in line with that, both in curriculum as well as standards.
And Senator Clausen, no one's asking to be exempt from state standards, and it's something obviously they're willing to do. There are plenty of schools that are already meeting state standards that are private schools. This would still provide options for schools that are already set up as non-public schools to still be able to have students come over and do part of their time. This school may not be set up yet. They're willing to do so, but there are schools that already are set up as non-public schools. And in those cases, they could have those students from the public school come over to those schools that are already set up and aligned with the state standards. So we're not asking to be exempt from state standards anywhere here.
I just want to remind all testifiers to please wait to be recognized by the chair. Senator Clausen, may I just interlude one quick question, and then I'll get back to you?
Sure.
Along the lines, I think, of what you're asking. Mr. Jensen, is your intention that if this bill were to pass, you would align the courses you're asking the public schools to accept to be in line? You would expect to align those with the state standard?
Yes, sir. Thank you for the question, sir. Our intent is to follow the guidelines that are currently in place with PSEO, being able to establish our curriculum. We have a curriculum director who's got a post-secondary degree in curriculum creation. So we're going to create curriculum, allow the local district to see if there are courses that are similarly offered by the high school in the district. If so, apply the appropriate credits. If there are content inside of that particular class where it's different than the local school district, like PSEO, we would send that to the Department of Education to get their approval for the number of credits that we would apply.
Thank you, Mr. Jensen. Thank you for letting me ride on your line of questioning, Senator Clausen. Senator Clausen.
Thank you, Senator. Good question. Senator Eichhorn, you were developing a scenario where this is already happening. We've got public students taking courses in private schools in the core subject areas. Is that how I understood your comment just a few minutes ago?
Senator Pratt?
Oh, sorry, Senator Eichhorn, after I told you to wait to be recognized.
Yeah, so I was trying to
I lost my train
trying
of
to
thought,
follow the
sorry.
rules this time. I got a little ahead of myself last time.
Thank you.
No, what we're talking about in this bill isn't currently happening. It's happening in terms of PSEO. So kids in 9th grade and 10th grade are not currently able to take advantage of taking courses outside of the public school. So if we enact this and this goes forward, it would just allow, you know, parents and students an additional opportunity for kids to be able to learn in different ways. And again, it's something we're already doing with PSEO.
Thank you. Senator Clausen.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chair. I think that that's not really comparing apples to apples, and 10th graders can take PSEO courses, so that's just for your information. Another following question. In the name of the school, I see the name hockey somewhere. Is there a hockey connected with your school, sir?
No, well, there's plans on the grounds where North Star Christian Academy currently is placed, where we will be helping to build an ice rink in Alexandria, but it has no affiliation to the actual school.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions for Senator Eichhorn or any of the testifiers we have? Senator Swedzinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Mr. Anderson, is that?
Yes. Yes, sir.
Yeah. What worldviews do you think are not being offered in the public school that the kids are leaving to get worldviews and in a different alternative
Well, I can't
setting?
speak for
Mr. Anderson.
Craig. He's the one that wrote this letter, but I would presume you could study many courses from a different worldview angle, such as biology. But I think you could also have an opportunity, perhaps, let's say that there might be a private school that is exceptional in world history or something like that, and you have a student, a child that is moving in that direction and excelling in that direction. This would just give them the opportunity to take some class from a renowned private school, for example, that they couldn't now. Even to take one class that's very specialized, that a certain school has developed and they're achieving great success with. So I don't, worldviews, I mean, there's as many as we have here. So I don't know which one Craig was talking about, but to be able to teach any even of the core classes from a different worldview would be an example.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Senator, did you have a follow-up, Senator? Okay. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, we'll call up our next testifiers, Mr. Uni, Ms. Kelleher, and Mr. Aronson. Welcome to the committee. Mr. Uni, please state your name and begin when you're ready.
Mr. Chair, members, good afternoon. My name is Adosh Uni. I'm the Director of Government Relations at the Minnesota Department of Education. Thank you for the opportunity to testify today on Senate File 1281. I want to thank the author for taking the time to meet with me yesterday and his office on such short notice. I do appreciate his time taken to hear our concerns. I do appreciate the amendment offered today to assure that the courses required to be accepted are non-sectarian. Again, I appreciate that. We still do have some concerns about the bill, which I have expressed to the senator. And it has been discussed before with the conversation that Senator Clausen had with the testifiers. You know, private school work may not meet the state standards. I think we heard from the testimony today that while there's a personal commitment from the school to try to align to the state standards for the courses they would want to qualify, there's no assurances in the law that that any other private school would have to make sure that their classes are aligned. So that's still a remaining concern for us there. That will have an impact on the integrity of the high school diploma that the public high school gives out, that they're awarding credit that is the basis for a diploma that is supposed to say that the students have mastered the state standards, and that may not be the case. And right now, and I think you'll hear from the other testifiers, the schools have the discretion to accept private school credits, but on their terms, from the criteria that they deem as the most fit. And none of that may be whether the courses are taught by a licensed teacher in that core content area, and whether the school is accredited or not. Under this bill, they would not have that discretion any longer. I would want to mention, since on the second page there is a mention, as was discussed, about schools not being able to generate non-public aid, our finance staff is looking at the issue of how that interacts, how the different scenarios of students attending public schools and going to private schools for a different set of times would interact with flows of non-public aid and the change that would happen there, shared time revenue, and general education funding. I think there was mention from one of the testifiers that the purpose, one of the intents of the bill is to possibly attract homeschool students. Under that scenario, there may be a fiscal impact there. So I would like to just alert the committee that there could be a fiscal nature to this proposal. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Rooney. Next, we have Ms. Kelleher.
Good afternoon, members. My name is Grace Kelleher, and I represent the Minnesota School Boards Association. And we have some large concerns with this bill going forward. First and foremost, I want to bring to your attention that under 120B.02, which is the graduation standards, we've talked about benchmarks and standards already in this hearing. A school district must adopt graduation requirements that meet or exceed state graduation requirements established in law or rule. So this bill really would have school districts looking specifically at courses and having to accept them, period. And would require the credits to either be accepted or then send it off to the Commissioner of Education to decide how many credits that should be. That has always been a point of local school boards, locally elected school boards going forward. I know there was some discussion about opportunities at the public schools. We recently just did a count in statute, and we have 28 different individual options available to public school students throughout the state. So we are trying to meet that. And as we looked at a third of the time, we did the math. And if you go through it, you can find out that basically 2 years of high school could be taught at one of these schools through this third time credit. We feel that we would then have to endorse it and hand out a graduation diploma. It's one of the best things about being on a school board is handing those diplomas, but then to not be responsible for what's being taught and even look over the requirements going forward. Lastly, we want a piece going forward where actually coursework and credit would be looked over by the school district. And we're interested to how IEP students would access this program, would they be granted access going forward? So we really ask you to not adopt this going forward. This is truly one of those things that can destroy a community and school districts and the integrity with a high school diploma. Please consider this going forward.
Thank you, Ms. Kelleher. Mr. Aronson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members. I'm Roger Aronson. I represent the Secondary School Principals Association, and you have a crowded agenda here too. And so Valerie Doslin kind of ceded me her time with the superintendents. And just similar to Ms. Kelleher, the school principals and the superintendents have some serious concerns with this bill, and much align the questions that you just heard here as well. A couple of the practical pieces, and I know Senator Clausen could speak to this as well, but when high schools do scheduling, they take all of the kids that they have in the school and they figure out what classes they're going to take next year. And it's a complex business of figuring out how many students are going into which class so that the kids can meet all of their graduation requirements before they're done. It has to do with staffing, how many teachers are going to teach particular sections, et cetera. This bill says 2 weeks before the school year starts, you could have a large number of kids that are just going to say, we're not going to come for part of the day. We're going to go across the street to another school. That's a problem for us. The bill doesn't address assuming that they go over there and then they don't like it and they come back. I mean, what happens then? And what happens with the credits in that particular transition? These are, real practical issues that we have. On a small level, a lot of schools have a rule that say you can't drive during the day. Now, the bill doesn't talk about, it kind of assumes that the kids would go in a block, as it says you could have a third of your classes at the private, but can they go the first hour, the third hour, and the sixth hour? Do they go the half a day? Do they get to drive when they go? Can they make it back for the other classes? What are the accommodations? There's a lot of practical stuff that goes into creating enrollment, as this appears to do, in 2 schools at the same time. Hockey was mentioned, and of course, we are in the midst of the Minnesota State High School League hockey tournament today, but athletic eligibility is a big deal in schools. And this bill doesn't say that the eligibility moves over to the private school, but I can tell you that people would have a serious concern of long-term what does happen there. Here we talk about 35% or 33%, a third. Are we going to move that off to a half at some point? And then where does the eligibility lie? And are you playing one sport in one school and another sport in another school? And those are big issues for local school districts as they're working through this. Superintendents and principals are charged with signing the diploma when the kids graduate, that they have met all of the requirements at that particular school. It's a big deal to principals and superintendents when they're signing that and certifying that the instruction that was received here met the requirements of that high school. It's difficult for them to sign these. I mean, I think it is when the kids actually aren't going to the classes in that school. Couple of little technical things in here. I think that the bill intends to create an exception to the Compulsory Attendance Act. It doesn't actually do that on its face. You'd want to fix that if you're going to go forward to put something in the exceptions section of the Compulsory Attendance Act that says, going across the street to the private school would meet that compulsory attendance piece. I think that I know that the author and the individuals bringing this forth are well-intentioned. We do not see this anywhere at all near to PSEO. That is a much different program with concurrent enrollment and with dual credit and at a much higher level. So we would really reject that notion. So, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have. And I want to say I do appreciate the accommodation of getting on the agenda today.
Thank you. Are there any questions for the testifiers? Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just a couple of quick questions, and probably for Mr. Aronson based on your remarks, but if Ms. Kelleher wants to weigh in as well. First of all, Mr. Aronson, you brought up the issue about the practical considerations and how that would affect schools in trying to navigate some of these issues. My reaction to this was that this would potentially really cause some wrinkles for schools in smaller communities. Is that sort of where you're thinking as well?
So, Mr. Aronson.
Mr. Chair and Senator Kent, I think that's true, yes, absolutely.
Okay. And my second question, Mr. Chair.
Yes.
You brought up the PSEO question, and I'm glad you did, because when I first read this bill, that sort of came to my mind too. It's like, are we opening some sort of door here with PSEO because there are some parallels, let me put it that way, and I appreciated hearing Senator Eichhorn address that and the earlier testifiers. But that would be my concern. Are we creating some sort of precedent here for students leaving campus and how we're going to fund that? And that makes me a little nervous that we're opening a pretty scary Pandora's box. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Mr. Chair?
Mr. Aronson.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Senator Kent. Yes, I mean, I think this is opening the door. Currently, all the money stays at the school when the kid's gone for a third of the day. Well, how long does that last? Currently, it's 35%. Well, then how long does that last? And there's a lot of other issues. And I think, Ms. Kelleher made a very good point that we have a lot of choice. And I know I've heard a lot of you say from time to time, too, when you make a choice, you're bound by it. So if you're going to go to the private school, cool, great. I mean, our private schools in Minnesota are very successful and deliver solid educational pieces. And when you pick to go to the public school, that's where we are too. But the thing about the public school is it takes a critical mass to make that run. So if you suddenly take a bunch of kids out of your small public school to go across to the private, suddenly we start to create a private that's succeeding and a public that's not. And we put those, so we are unabashed about saying we want to defend the high school experience. Yes, Madam Chair, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Arnson. We have Senators Utke, Hoffman, and Pratt on the schedule. Senator Utke.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, testifiers and Senator Eichhorn. I just want to thank Senator Eichhorn for bringing this forward. I like it. We talk about additional options that we do need. Students and parents are looking for it, and I think this is brings forth a good idea and a good suggestion. We're talking about a lot of things, since I hear the negatives, and it's speculation about signing diplomas and all these things. It hasn't happened yet, so we don't have anything there's no hesitations there. It's like anything new. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like. It looks good on paper, but you know, I hear so many times we have all these new things come to the table, and frankly, the department's against them all, from what I see. I would like you guys to open up too and digest some of these things, and hopefully in the end we have something better. You know, we still service, 95% of our students go to public schools, which is wonderful. But there are other options out there, and we have parents looking for additional pieces to this puzzle, and this looks like something that could lead to that being a good deal. So thank you.
Thank you, Senator Utke. Senator Hoffman.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And this is actually something I've seen happen before in other small towns, where there's been this switching back and forth, and on Wednesdays at noon everybody went to the Catholic church and got it's in the Catholic school. I mean, it's kind of reminiscent of that, but there are some systems questions that I think, Mr. Chair, we want to look at. Number one, as you, a former school board member, and so am I, it's the local control piece that seems to be resonating in my mind on if I don't have the offered curriculum. You know, granted, I'm going to go back. Let's say I want to take a world religion and I get it at the widget place, whatever we call the school. It could be a school in, you know, Rochester, wherever we call it the school. But I'm getting that clearly has some cross correlational value within the history context, within social studies. I mean, there's so many things. But it's the local school board that gets to really make that. We make those decisions, and we have made those decisions, and we set them up. So I'm wondering if we're tipping into a new methodology of how we're going to do business in Minnesota by saying that the commissioner, or in this case, the federal law would say that somebody representing the commissioner would make that determination, not the local school board. So that's something I think we want to take a peek at, process-wise and policy-wise, because you might not be happy with the end result there. Because if you centralize government, if you centralize the educational component within the state of Minnesota as a single point, not the local control, you've lost that local control. Does that make sense, Mr. Chair? And you're shaking your head yes. So I just want to be cautious of that. So, and the department might want to respond to that. And it's something I think, Senator, you might want to have that conversation locally, because it is the school board that makes those determinations. Then I guess the second question is, if 1/3 of the time is on is going to be potentially available for me to go, and I love the ability, the flexibility and choices. But let's say I'm a child who's receiving some kind of special education and/or related services. Not that I would bring it up, but I do. And if 1/3 of my time, I guess there's two questions. Number one, would we make assurances within those private organizations that are now part of this option that they're going to follow the Section 504 of the Rehab Act, non-discrimination language, those types of things? Same kind of question I asked when Senator Chamberlain had his bill up here. But you know what? The thing still applies, because if we're stuck to Title 13 in our state's constitution about free, appropriate public education in the state of Minnesota, then these are very valid questions to ask. So I guess we should ask that question, and then as long as we're embedding in that, we say to ourselves, am I going to be able to then have those specialized instructions and/or related services within the context of the new school? And I forget the name of the new school. Well, it's not just this school, but it's a new system we're trying to create. Senator, so then, do I then get those services and supports in the context of that private school placement? Well, then you bring up another law that you have to look at. No, I'm serious. This is real policy wonky question stuff that says, every year, the local school district sits with the private schools and says how much are the special education and or related services, what they're going to look like. It's the local education, LEA. That's what it says in federal law. It's the local education agency. So those three policy systems, I think, really need to be talked about before you can move. I love this idea of being able to do it because it's something that wants to happen in a small town, and I've seen it happen. But there are three policy things that we really need to really deeply look at before this becomes something you want to put your rubber stamp on, Senator, Chair. That's it.
Thank you, Senator. Senator Hoffman, is there a question in there for Senator Eichhorn or any of the testifiers?
Oh, yeah. There are, Senator, Mr. Chair and Senator Eichhorn, there are. It's a great opportunity for us to really look at how flexible we can get in public education, but there are three, I identified three systemic issues that need to be looked at regarding if you start doing this, then you need to look at that. So it's not as clean, it's not just a pretty clean bill. We need to actually have some conversations about that, what I just laid out.
So Senator Hoffman, can you summarize the three questions you'd like the testifiers to address?
Number one is local control versus MDE, which is what our friend from the Department of Ed brought up, because that is an issue. Number two, when you're looking at, are those services and supports that are provided under special education and or related services, are you going to be, are you going to assure that 504 and IDEA are part of this private school? Number two. Number three, then, if yes to number two, then number three is, then how does that look at the system that every year I get together with the private schools and the public schools, local education control, and say, determine what supports and services within special education are going to be part of that project, because special education and related services can be and should be in the private school.
Thank you, Senator Hoffman. Senator Eichhorn, or if any of the other testifiers would like to address that, Senator Eichhorn, would you like to phone a friend?
I think the first couple parts were addressed at Mr. Rooney, if he wants to go ahead and respond.
Sure, Mr. Chair, members, Senator Hoffman. I think that I'll just address the special education services issue first. I mean, you're absolutely right that under IDEA, under the federal laws, these students deserve, they deserve their services, as well as under Chapter 125A, and this law doesn't require the private entity to provide those services under 125A, and then I think we approach an area of equity. What is an equitable access to this opportunity for students with special education services, special education needs, if the time, up to the third of time, would encroach upon the time they need to receive the services that they deserve under their IEP. So I think there's a serious issue there from an equitable access concern. From the local control issue in terms of appealing to the commissioner to assign credit to the private schools, I think this goes to the nature of there's no assurance that these classes that they're taking are aligned to our state standards. Our department is set up to evaluate courses that are aligned to state standards. I do not believe that the department has the capacity to assign an appropriate credit if there is an appeal for a course that's not necessarily based on state standards.
Thank you, Ms. Kelleher.
Mr. Chairman and members, I just would like to jump on the local control argument. Basically, our question is, so let's go to the place where the commissioner denies credit for these credits coming forward. How do we at the local school district come up with a credit recovery program? Counting kids' credits and keeping track of them so they can graduate is a big part of what we do. And I'm not sure we'd be able to do that in the fashion our communities have come to depend on.
Thank you. I was wondering if Mr. Jensen might be able to come up and speak to some of those issues as well.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes, Mr. Jensen.
As it relates to local control, we certainly want to keep local the control over whether or not these particular courses that we would offer within our school to fall in line with the courses that are both meeting Minnesota Department of Education standards and agreed upon by the local school district as to what those particular credits would apply for as far as the number of credits. If there were concerns at the local level that they weren't sure whether or not they had something comparable as far as a class being offered to assign those particular credits, then as is being currently done within PSEO, we would envision that the Minnesota Department of Education would look at the curriculum that was developed and assign an appropriate credit for that before the courses were ever offered. So there wouldn't be a makeup of credits. People would know whether or not they were credited before they enrolled and what the credits for that particular class was, as well as how it would fall into the established requirements at the local level of particular credits that are needed for graduation. We want to keep both the control as well as the investment in the public school. We see that as the real thrust of what this is. We want our kids to stay within the public school system, and in those unique situations where there is some added value to be able to receive education from an institution, just so happens that private institutions are going to be able to discuss things similar to topics like creative design versus whether we're talking about worldviews and different groups of people, how they look at the world through their perspective, whether it be a religious perspective, whether it be Christian or Muslim or whatever it is, being able to explore those things and follow truth wherever it goes. Right now, the public schools are tied, at least for their hands, to be able to do that for our kids. My kids have an interest in that. My kid is on an IEP, my kid that's in high school level. Unfortunately, because of his IEP, he was still struggling heavily at the public school system, so we've taken him in and are homeschooling him. We're homeschooling him, and he's also now participating in the religious release time programs that we're offering through North Star Christian Academy, not just for the breadth of understanding of what the content is, but just the social structure of being in a smaller environment and having a hands-on approach to being able to love on kids with the special needs that they have. So again, going back to where we're established today as a school, we're there to try to love on kids and help them understand that there's other areas of education that they can come over and be breadth in. If we can do it formally where we're not affecting the public school dollar, so the public schools can still function as is and keep the funding where it is and come to a private school, not specifically North Star Christian Academy, but any private school that they have a course or two that they feel as though would be valuable to them to be able to do that, great. Allow them to go, pay for the class at that private school where they're going to minimize any financial impact on the public school system, and then allow them to be embracing the things in areas in which they want to learn. Right now, what has to happen is I have a daughter right now who is in full-time private school. I have her in full-time private school because she's not able to get what we believe is some education or some worldview perspectives that she can't receive at the high school. I would love to have her at the high school, enrolled in high school, and take a couple of the classes that are offered in the private school, but I'm paying full tuition in a private school right now for my daughter to literally only be taking a couple of the courses that I would like for her to be able to take there. So it does offer some struggles. And we're trying to make it the bill is trying to make it as flexible without much impact, but obviously whether or not how the enrollment process goes for the school, kids going outside of the public school to get their classes and when they're going to take them and how many are they going to take, I think that we would, ourselves personally, we would work closely with the public school to try to be able to work together to make that work. If it's first hour and third hour or whatever that looks like, to come to an understanding to work together. We're not trying to oppose anything they're doing. We want to enhance it, if that helps.
Thank you. I have a couple of questions, and I may be around the board because they've been coming up through multiple testifiers. So, Mr. Rooney, you talked about the MCAs and the fact that private schools aren't required to do MCAs. I was trying to understand, were you suggesting that they, as Mr. Jensen stated, they would be trying to meet the state standards? Is there, help me understand the concern that you raised around the MCA tests.
Sure, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, again, my name is Adosh Uni, Department of Education. I didn't, just to be clear, I didn't explicitly bring up the MCAs. I believe that was in a conversation that Senator Clausen had earlier. However, that does touch upon some of the testimony that I did give in terms of students meeting the state standards for their graduation requirements. As I mentioned, the bill doesn't inherently include assurances that all institutions across the state would systematically make sure that the courses they're offering to these students as applicable for their public school credit would meet the state standards. I obviously fully trust the assurances that were being given here today that they're going to try really hard to make sure that their credits are aligned. I don't doubt that. But without the insurances in law, we have other schools that may be providing credits or don't have the requirement to provide credits that are undergirded with our state standards. And the concern there is that we give diplomas based on those graduation requirements that provide assurances that these students have mastered our state standards. You know, under our federal accountability, our students are required to take MCAs that are based on our state standards. And these students pertaining to the MCAs, I think as the discussion was brought up earlier, would be taking the MCAs without having learned those standards, possibly. And so we want to make sure that if this proposal were to go forward, that it would definitely have to have the assurance that these state standards were met. That's just one component of our concerns, but I'm just addressing the question you brought forward to me.
Thank you, Mr. Rooney. So would the commissioner or the local school board assure that the states, as Mr. Jensen stated, he wants to align his coursework with the state standards, would the commissioner or would the local school board then validate that it is in fact meeting those standards?
Currently, the department does not oversee each board or each local school district and charter schools standardization of their credits. However, there is the requirement under state law that they do have classes that meet the state standards in order for students to graduate.
And Senator Eichhorn, would you be open to some sort of an amendment that would require courses being taken using this religious release time to meet state standards?
Yes, I would be open to that.
Okay. You know, I guess the next question went to the fact that we do in fact have schools receiving funding for the time that these students are in religious release, and I'm just kind of wondering, and these classes are being, as I think you said, Mr. Jensen, these classes are being provided at the family's expense. They're paying the tuition for the students to get the instruction. Is there, maybe this is a better question for Ms. Kelleher then, is there any concern if as Senator Eichhorn said, there was a commitment to make sure that these classes being accepted met the state standards and reviewed by the local board and approved by the local board, could they, and would you then have any objection to not only receiving the funding, but then offering a credit if they met the board standards?
Mr. Chairman and members, my question would be, would it be for the third of the time, or would it be just the religious release time you mentioned?
Ms. Kelleher, I think we're going to trade questions here. I didn't know there was a difference.
Well, a third of the time, as we figured out, could end up to be about 2 years' worth of your high school experience being at this other school. And your question is, would we accept them if they met the state benchmarks for curriculum? And that's really done through the MCA testing. They'd come back, either they come back into the public school and be tested, and that's the way we demonstrate our accountability. So we've got a federal and state measures of our accountability. The question is, would these students then return, become part of the public school's test results, and at some point cause the whole public school to have issues and problems going forward, either about, as we spoke earlier today, about attendance, how many are there at that point to take the test, and then about what those test scores look like, or what their star rating would be if, in fact, a third of the time they'd be receiving instruction at another school district, hopefully with a licensed teacher going forward. So it puts many of the pieces that the public schools ensure to their community are met in a third party. And we've got concerns about that.
So, Ms. Kelleher, Mr. Jensen, religious relief is up to is 3 hours or less per week before 8 is reduced. Mr. Jensen, I think I recall from your testimony, your intent is not to exceed the 3 hours per week. Is this bill exceeding that to a point where it would have a negative impact on ADMs?
Mr. Chairman, thank you for the question. Just to be clear, today, North Star Christian Academy is operating as a religious release time organization that is lining up with law related to number of hours where kids can be released from public schools to take in religious education. If this bill were to pass, North Star Christian Academy understands fully what it takes to be recognized as a non-public school, and we would intend to increase our rigor of the educational programs to align with what is clearly defined in the statutes of what constitutes and be recognized as a non-public school. And we have every intention of doing just that.
Thank you. And to the question of special ed, Mr. Jensen, I think you talked to it a little bit, but I don't. Is there any approval process by the local board to approve religious release time? So, for instance, if you were trying to take a student out at the point in time that I'm sorry, I got distracted here. If you're trying to take a student out at the point in time they're receiving special services, I don't see a problem here with FERPA necessarily, and I'm just trying to understand how the special ed piece fits into this, because you're providing an education that, if we get the approval, is. Are you dying to ask a question? No. Okay. 1 second. Let me. Okay. Well, somebody. I'd be glad to have somebody answer it here soon. I guess I'm still missing the issue on special ed, because we can provide services. These are still public school students. They're still getting served through the public school. They're using approved release time for these classes. And I'll use an example I heard from parents, and when I was on the school board, that there might be teachers that were putting in their opinion or worldview into a class that didn't necessarily jive with the parents' worldview. You could take world history, you could take geography, you could take a lot of different classes, and they might want someone who's more aligned with their values teaching some of those classes. So help me understand how that conflicts with IDEA and special ed requirements. And Senator Hoffman, I'll yield to you if you want to speak to it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Absolutely. I mean, it's a great question, and you're correct on the issue of FERPA. CFR 3499 has no bearance in here because of the fact that it's an issue. It's not an issue of Family Educational Rights and Privacy Act. But what comes up, though, is least restrictive environment. Is this placement then seen as because with least restrictive environment, then it's going to come to the choice. And in the private school conversation, is this seen as it is part of my least restrictive environment as far as placement goes, that this is part of the public school, or is this my choice to go into the private school? Because if it's my choice to go into the private school, then there is no obligation for certain services and supports under IDEA to follow that child. However, there still is an obligation within the discussion of private school versus public school. For every year, the private schools and the public schools get together and determine what it is that those supports and services would look like, right? I mean, that just happens on the piece. So LRE choice private school, but then the district placement side of that, it becomes part of the district's extension if the district sees that going to, and we'll use, Mr. Jensen, you as an example, even though we're talking about any other private school, but if I see that as a district placement, then that would definitely be where those supports and services must follow that child to that place. So that's what I was getting to on the whole thing of idea, Mr. Chair, was that those discussions need to occur. I love this idea of the ability for some flexibility, but we got to have, somebody's got to have those discussions in place of that, and that's what it makes sense.
What I'd like to do is I'd like to go maybe 5 more minutes on this topic. Senator Eichhorn, what I'd like to do is, since we talked about an amendment, maybe hold this bill over, lay it on the table at 5 o'clock, have an amendment drafted, and bring this back up in our meeting tomorrow. So with that, thank you. Ms. Kelleher, did you have a comment on that?
Mr. Chairman, you went back and talked about programs going back and forth between the private school and the public school. I just want to refer to you to Section 1 of the bill under B. The school district must grant academic credit. And if you go a little bit farther down there, the school board shall grant a comparable number of credits, or the commissioner will have to decide going forward. So it's not like we're reviewing the curriculum as we do with lots of other things and approve it. It's that this is the highway and it only goes one way.
And Ms. Kelleher, I think that's what I heard Senator Eichhorn say he was open to an amendment for, to make sure that there was that collaboration between the private school and the board to make sure the standards align. I have Senator Clausen, then Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted, I was under the impression that you actually are operating a school, and apparently that's not true. It's just religious instruction.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, yes, sir.
Thank you for that clarification. I think it's interesting we don't have anyone here from the Alexandria Public Schools that are going to be impacted by that. It would be nice to have heard from them. And I think it's coincidental, perhaps, that we're building an ice arena and a school at the same time. And are you going to be using that ice time during the school day for instruction?
I'm sorry, please, go ahead.
Mr. Chairman, thanks for the question. I personally can't speak to the ice arena. I have myself as the director of the North Star Christian Academy, I am there to educate the kids. There is a group of men that have come together and women that have come together to see if they can raise funds to place on the grounds of where North Star Christian Academy is a third sheet of ice for our community. Our community is in desperate need of additional piece of ice, and our hope is to be able to broaden the economic impact of the community by being able to provide more ice time and have more current tournaments for kids. I can't speak to what the rink will or won't be as it relates to the students that come to the school.
Thank you. Senator Clausen.
Just to give one other problem that I encountered as a principal, and that's class rank is always important to people. And when you have a group that's going and taking classes somewhere else and getting graded and bringing those back, it always causes a problem and can be manipulated, quite honestly, as far as class valedictorian or top 10% of the class. I've had those experiences. So I continue to have a lot of concerns about the direction of this bill. So thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Senator Clausen. Senator Kent.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and I'll be really brief. 2 things, if we're going to lay this on the table and there's going to be an amendment drafted. One concern I have is we're talking about the shared time in terms of those hours, but in this bill, we're talking about 1/3 of the total hours, which is significantly more, as Ms. Kelleher has talked about. So I think we need to be clear on what it is we're addressing in this bill in terms of that aspect of statute and what we're trying to do here. because that's what I keep coming back to. When I read the bill, I mean, the things we're talking about sort of in the hypothetical, and I appreciate very much, that you're offering these assurances that in this case, this is how things are going to be done. But what this does is create an entire new framework for the entire state. And it can be all kinds of institutions and organizations and who knows what. They're not going to come here and give us those assurances. So we need to make sure, it's very conservative to sit here and make sure that we've done our homework and buttoned this up, that if we're going to create something new that's going to play out throughout our state and affect our kids, that we make sure we're crossing the T's and dotting the I's. So I appreciate that we're talking about trying to go back and see if we can take care of some of those things.
Thank you, Senator Kent. Certainly, we want to make sure that as the policy committee, we're trying to get it as, sometimes we pass things on to be worked on in the interim, but I think in this case, this is a big enough policy issue that we should be talking about it in this committee. So, Senator Eichhorn, did you have any comments before we lay the bill on the table?
Sure. Just at the heart of the bill is what I would call the ultimate local control. We talked a lot about local control here, and in my opinion, the ultimate local control is that of the family unit and the personal decision that families make on where to send their children to school. As some of you are aware, I have non-traditional students, and that's a personal decision. And this just provides families and students an additional option. It's not something that's going crazy. It's something we're already doing on the PSEO level. So I appreciate the consideration and the conversation about this today. And I look forward to working with anybody that wants to work with me on the amendment. I'm certainly willing to do that. One other point that was also made was, that districts maybe lose students. So the other part that wasn't mentioned is that districts maybe gain students. And I think Mr. Jensen had alluded to that as well. There are some families that homeschool currently that may consider sending their kid to the private school, or excuse me, to the public school, because now they can have their child also spend some time in a private school. It just provides additional choices for families. Again, the ultimate local control. So I look forward to continuing to working on it, and I'll stop there.
Thank you, Senator Eichhorn. Senate File 1281 will be laid on the table, and Senator, I hope you can work this out by 1 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. So, thank you. So, Senator Eichhorn, we have Senate File 1474 next.
My guess is this one will probably be a little easier.
So, Senator Eichhorn, when you're ready.
I am. In front of us, 1474, and we do have an A2 amendment.
Senator Eichhorn moves the A2 amendment. Senator, do you want to just describe the amendment very briefly?
Yes, you should have it in front of you, members, but again, it's largely technical, just changing numbers throughout the language there, other than on page 5, line 30. It just says that if an innovation zone partnership fails to implement the zone, that the panel can make some recommendations for them and give them an opportunity to remediate and get back on plan.
Thank you, Senator Eichhorn. This is the first stop for the bill. This is an author's amendment. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Senator Eichhorn, to your bill.
Sure. Again, this is for innovation zones. As we know, there are already some of those in the state, and they're doing some great things. This is an opportunity for additional school districts to maybe make it easier for them to also be able to innovate and try some different things and collaborate with other schools. Section 1, it's the establishment and requirements for participation innovation zones. Subdivision 2, it would be some exemptions from laws and rules that would allow them to be able to do that. Subdivision 3 talks about the planning and implementation grants that will go along with that. Subdivision 4 talks about the advisory panel that goes along with that. That would be a 14-member panel made up of various different parties that would have a stake in this. They would also review all of the plans. Subdivision 5 talks about the commissioner approval. And then Section 2 talks about the appropriations for the innovation zone to help with the planning grants to help schools implement some of these. And with that, I'm going to turn it over. We have a few testifiers with us today, and it looks like Mr. Haugen's going to go first.
Thank you. Thank you. I was listening as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. I'm thrilled to be with you today. My name is Jay Haugen. I'm currently the superintendent of schools in Farmington. I've had that position for 6 years. I was also 5 years in an inner-ring suburb, West St. Paul, Mendota Heights, Eagan as superintendent, and superintendent in Sleepy Eye for 10 years. I'm starting out that way to say this gray as well earned. I've actually been an educational leader in Minnesota since the 1980s. I got out of the classroom fairly early. I was very excited about an idea. We don't even realize that it's an idea today because it's just the way it is. We believe all kids can be successful, can learn and be successful. It's part of what we're after as school districts. When I was first in education, that was a debate. Was that really true? Or what is the percentage? And if you go a little farther back, I was born in the 50s. In the 50s was the first year that there was a grade where more than half of the students graduated. Before that, less than half of students actually graduated from high school. And so that's my way of saying our educational system was designed to be an opportunity for students. At some point, we realized it was a basic need of all of our students, for us and for our society in this world today. And so we have been trying, people know me, and some of you do, I've been a change agent trying to make a wildly better educational system since I came. And I'm just one of thousands. And you have tried too. And you've invested dollars, and private companies have invested dollars. And we've worked really, really hard. But you know that achievement gap is still about the same as when we started decades ago. What is going on? So many good people working so hard, investing in their careers. But we just don't seem to ever be able to get there. I'll tell you, there is an answer, and it is the system. The system is doing exactly what it was designed to do. No matter what we invest in it, this is what our system does. So we need a new system, and that's what Innovation Zone is all about, creating a new system. You know, we can create a system from the ground up. We can design one that at its heart makes sure every student is successful. We can do that, but it's a new system. And just a quick visual for you. So imagine that our educational system, when it was developed, was a game. I'm just going to say it's Monopoly. No reason, but just say it's Monopoly. Monopoly is a very successful game, just like our educational system is. But Monopoly has a certain set of rules and a certain set of game pieces and a game board, and you play Monopoly and you know what you're after. At 30-some years ago, we decided we wanted to play a new game, one where 100% of kids be successful. I'm just going to call it the game of life. But we still have the same rules as Monopoly. We still have the same game board and the game pieces. Sometimes people ask me, well, what rules don't you need? What would make a difference? Well, if you were going to play the game of life, what Monopoly rules don't you need? So my way of saying, we need schools that are willing to do research and development, to step out, design a new system, a system that we can do that will have every single student be successful because it was designed to have every single student be successful. And so it's not one thing, it's everything. It's a new design. So thank you for listening, and I look forward to the conversation.
Thank you, Superintendent. Next we have Mr. Heistad.
Mr. Chair and members, my name is David Heistad. I am the Director of Research at Bloomington Public Schools, and I'm going to briefly talk about the research component to this legislation. We know that Minnesota businesses are very successful, known for their innovation, research and development. And this bill encourages districts to look at innovation in the same light as businesses invest in their research and development. We know that there are proven practices that are documented, for example, in the What Works Clearinghouse at the federal government. And so we're doing program improvement continuously. but we're suggesting that you also need to innovate in areas that haven't been tested yet, to make sure that we can come up with new ways of making sure that students are successful. In Bloomington in particular, we've been innovating with career and college readiness, and one of the strong components of this effort is to build very rigorous research along with the innovation so that within a short period of time we can start providing results in terms of return on investment. And that's the component that I bring to the commitment for innovation zones, is that I, as a researcher and colleagues within the Center for Applied Research, Evaluation, and Innovation at the University of Minnesota, would be available for school districts, large or small, to be able to set up long-term studies to follow students to see if they are meeting the goals that were set apart. So we want to see innovation in areas that may have not been tried in the past, but we want to make sure that we have the research to demonstrate that those innovations are successful. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Ms. Snyder.
Good evening, Chair Pratt and members. Thank you for having us. My name is Lisa Snyder, currently the superintendent of Lakeville Area Public Schools and an Innovation Zone partner with Prior Lake Savage Area Schools. This evening, I want to just focus on change, and I want to focus on the opportunity that an Innovation Zone designation can bring to a school district or a partnering school district, such as in our case. I, too, have been a superintendent for a little while now, 8 years, and I started out much of my career I spent in Wisconsin. And through that journey, I was able to be a part of creating 3 charter schools along with being in the public school system over there. And you know, the reason why you create charter schools, the reason why Minnesota has such strong laws around charters is to give parents choice and to transform learning. It's really all about learning. The Innovation Zone gives our public districts an opportunity to transform within the system. So what's so exciting about that for districts is to think about not just always giving new laws, new opportunities for our kids to leave our districts to have innovative, transformative experiences, but asking our own districts to change, redesign, and create those experiences for our students. As you know, pushback when you're trying to change a very long, legacy-filled institution can be quite strong, both inside and outside of the organization. One thing we have found, and when I say we, I mean our partner Prior Lake and Lakeville Area Public Schools, is having the Innovation Zone designation as we created our career-focused MNCAPS program, Minnesota Center for Advanced Professional Studies for our juniors and seniors. Having that designation really helped with the questions, with barriers. Folks tended to say, you know, that they're part of an innovation zone, so it's okay. It's okay for them to innovate. It's okay for them to create new things. So it really provides an opportunity for a mindset change. Of course, the reason is for students. We want to encourage educators across our state to create new learning environments for students that include their voice and include the skills and opportunities they need to be successful in a global society. I'll give you a very quick story about my granddaughter, who's a sophomore at Prior Lake High School. As she's preparing for her junior year next year, she called me up and said, "Grandma, I want to go to MNCAPS. Then I would like to take 2 online classes at Minnesota Virtual School, and then I'll finish my opportunities and studies out at Prior Lake High School." She's personalizing her own education. She's going around the system and really maximizing any opportunity she can. I think it's our obligation to create those choices within our system and to be able to do that for each and every student, not just my savvy granddaughter who happens to know these things because of who her grandma is. Finally, this is all about teacher empowerment. The Innovation Zone asks for us to work in partnership with our instructional staff to create these. We know that's how change happens, not from top-down mandates. So we're very excited that this will be a partnership with our educators. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Snyder. Next, we have Ms. Burris Gallagher and Mr. Esdahl. Welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record and begin when you're ready.
Good evening, Mr. Chair and members. My name is Brandy Burris Gallagher. I'm a policy director at Ed Allies, which is an education advocacy nonprofit which seeks to improve public education and to ensure every Minnesota child has access to a rigorous and engaging education. This evening, I'd just like to quickly speak in support of the Innovation Zone bill. Recently, Ed Allies has participated in the Bush Foundation's convenings around individualized learning, and we see this legislation as a key step in efforts to reimagine what education could look like in Minnesota, specifically by providing an environment where students have greater access to education programs that combine cultural relevance, career relevance, and instructional relevance to meet their individual needs. And we want to thank Senator Eichhorn and committee members for striking the right balance between flexibility and opportunity to innovate and assurances for quality and impact. With that, I just want to reiterate that we're happy to speak in support of Senate File 1474 as amended. Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Esdahl.
Hello, thanks, Mr. Chair, members. A number of years, I'm Lars Esdahl with Education Evolving. So as we heard from the superintendents here, there is a growing interest on behalf of districts to do things differently, to innovate. And I think to echo some of what Superintendent Snyder said, the legislature did act to create space for innovation in the early 90s through the charter sector. And with growing charter enrollment and growing district interest in innovation, I think a lot of what this bill does is to make it more possible for districts to respond with their own innovation, which for the sake of a public education system that meets the needs of all kids, I think is really an important opportunity to provide those districts. And I think the Innovation Zone is the tools that they need to respond with that innovation. I also just want to point out in particular, there are 3 steps here that a school district needs to go through in order to be approved to be an Innovation Zone. There is the approval by their school board, the recommendation of the 14-member advisory council, and an approval by the commissioner. So this is not just anyone can do this whenever they want sort of thing. There's really careful checks and balances for making sure that quality hypotheses and innovations are the ones that go through this process. And then finally, I just want to list some of the other organizations that have agreed to support this bill, along with Education Evolving. There's the members, some of which were speaking here today, of our superintendent's discussion group, which Education Evolving convenes. It's about 15 to 20 superintendents from around the state. The Minnesota Association of School Administrators, the Minnesota School Boards Association, the Association of Metropolitan School Districts, Schools for Equity in Education, and Ed Allies. And I want to thank all those organizations for their work on this bill.
Thank you, Mr. Esdahl. Are there any questions? Senator Swedzinski.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I guess my question would be for Ms. Snyder. Is she still here? You had said that this bill will achieve teacher empowerment and not be top-down. Why would there only be 1 member from Education Minnesota on the advisory panel?
Thank you, Senator Swedzinski. Ms. Snyder.
Thank you so much. I was referring to the part of the bill that talks about the design of the plan. So the proposal itself has to be supported by the instructional staff at the local level before it can even go to the state level, to the advisory board. So I would have to defer to Mr. Esdahl to talk about the makeup of that advisory board at the state.
Thank you.
Senator Kent, you had a question? Oh, I'm sorry, Senator Chamberlain.
I returned. This has been around, this idea has been floating around out there for a while, so thanks for keeping it up. We need stuff like this to continue to move things along. Innovation is what we need, creativity, and it's vested in the people that do this stuff. That's where the solutions are, not, we're pretty smart up here at times, but we certainly don't have all the answers. So good idea, great work, and we hope to see it come to fruition. Thanks.
Thank you, Senator Chamberlain. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none. Senator Eichhorn moves that Senate File 1474 do pass the committee and be referred to the Committee on Education Finance. All those as amended. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? That motion carries. Thank you, Senator Eichhorn. Next, we have Senate File 1847, Senator Kent. Yeah. Senator Kent, welcome to the committee.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is my first bill in front of this committee. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members, and thanks for hearing this bill, Senate File 1847. Before we get started, if I may, I'd like to offer the A1 Authors Amendment.
Thank you. Senator Kent offers the A1 Authors Amendment. Senator Kent, can you just explain your amendment very briefly? Or would it be easier to do it as part of the bill?
Well, this is a delete section 1. So
okay.
Since it's an author's amendment, can we just go ahead and pass
sure.
it, and then we can go through the.
All those in favor of the A1 amendment signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? The motion carries. Senator Kent.
Thank you very much. And this should be very short and sweet. There was legislation that we passed last year that was known as the All Kids Count Act and disaggregated data, and this is just basically some tweaking to that language, and we will go through the details of that. Very quickly before I do, I would like to give a shout out, if I may, to Tu Zhang, who is here. He is a Maplewood City Council member, and so I'm glad to have him here, and he's been working on this issue as well. So as I mentioned, we had the All Kids Count Act last year, and this is a follow-up because of some issues surrounding ESSA, which, as we know, has been an ongoing process. And then as the Department of Education was beginning to implement this and some insights that they gained, we recognized that there was an opportunity to make some tweaks that would make this work better. And we heard some feedback from some of the parts of the education community and school districts that they had some concerns, and so this is a response to that. Ultimately, as we've established today through earlier bills, data is a good thing, right? Data is helpful in education, and it helps us do our jobs better in terms of teaching our kids. And what this idea is, in terms of disaggregating data, is to get a more detailed understanding of how different populations of students are doing so that we can more effectively respond to their needs and help them in terms of education. It has had broad bipartisan support, and it's a natural evolution of everything we've been doing for a number of years. And ultimately, a big part of this goal is to help us really effectively close the achievement gap. As we get ready to go through the bill, I will point out that you have in your packet, it was handed out earlier, a bill summary that Ed Allies has put together. And I will also point out that the second part of that is it's organizations that are supporting this and a number of individuals, rather than having a bunch of people testify, again, keeping it short and sweet. You can see that it has the support. There's been a lot of effort with many groups to try to get this bill and this language into the form that it is. And to sort of cover some of the high points, this does delay implementation. Again, that was a request from school districts. We're creating rollout sites so that we can sort of test all this initially, and then it will roll out statewide following that. And with that, I will introduce Josh Crossan to talk about some more of the details of the legislation.
Thank you, Senator Kent. Mr. Crossan.
Thank you, Mr.
Welcome
Chair.
back. Please state your name for the record and begin when you're ready.
Yes, Mr. Chair, Senators, Senator Kent, my name is Joshua Crossan with Ed Allies, and I just wanted to let you know that we support this underlying piece of legislation. I would first like to acknowledge the hard work of Senator Kent and her commitment to perfect this law and include the most impacted stakeholders in the conversation. Ed Allies has been working along with the Coalition of Asian American Leaders. They are the group, the second group on that handout. It's probably a little hard to read. The Minnesota Council on Latino Affairs, the Council on the Asian Pacific Minnesotans, the Black African Heritage Council, the Minnesota Department of Education has been a strong partner, as well as the St. Paul Public Schools District, representing the interests of schools and school leaders. They've all worked together with Senator Kent these last several months, attempting to find a way to make this law a reality. This legislation is an example of the community leadership and input all policies should have. Last year, through Senator Kent's leadership, the legislature passed a law that made Minnesota a leader in terms of data collection and analysis. The law stated that student data must be disaggregated by race and ethnicity if 1,000 or more Minnesotans identify with any race or ethnicity. The legislation was to be implemented by MDE and all schools by the 2017-18 school year. So Senator Kent's current bill would do a few things to make sure this law is workable for our schools and the communities that they serve. As the senator pointed out, it delays data disaggregation by a year, starting in it was really originally supposed to start the 2017-18 school year. It is now going to start the 2018-19 school year for 6 designated schools and districts. These are the rollout sites. Starting the 2019-2020 school year, it'll be implemented and rolled out statewide. The idea behind this is to allow those 6 schools and school districts to come back and relay the ideas and the lessons learned from this law so that we can implement it with fidelity the following years. And third, it caps the number of student groups to be disaggregated, making sure that this is a workable piece of legislation for everybody. We appreciate this body for taking up this legislation, and we look forward to collaborating with you to make sure this law works, especially for our most underserved kids. Thank you.
And Mr. Chair?
Yes, Senator
If I
Kent.
can just conclude with a couple of observations. The collaboration that has gone on in the process of getting to this point, I think, is indicative of the real commitment to doing this. And also, one of the great outcomes of this is that through these rollout sites, we're going to have a real opportunity to engage with the communities and really understand what works and what doesn't, so that we're more effective. Ultimately, that's the goal. The goal is not to create a good survey. The goal is not to have rollout sites. The goal is to get good data so that we can be better at our jobs here, and so that district leaders around the state and teachers also can do a better job in terms of taking care of our kids. So that's the point, and we're really, really pleased that we got to this point, because I think this really delivers that.
Thank you, Senator Kent. Senator Chamberlain, you had a question.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Senator Kent, Mr. I have 2 questions. One, Senator Kent, you used the word, quote, tweak, unquote. I see 5 pages and then this big amendment here. So is that a tweak or is that something else?
Mr.
Senator
Chair
Kent.
and Senator Chamberlain, my apologies. That is a vestige of my advertising career from the 90s and the 2000s.
All right.
So, I mean, it is a response to concerns that we heard from school districts. We were really grateful that the St. Paul School District came forward, and their assessment director was really instrumental in helping us work through some of the technicalities of this. And so because of that, what you see, we created the rollout sites, so that is new. And so in that sense, that's not a tweak per se, but it is an enhancement because it allows us to sort of practice in a smaller pond before we roll it out statewide. Okay. And the rest of it is really clarifying the criteria by which we are defining the categories that we're going to be surveying. And again, the point of that is to make sure that we get good response rates. We had that whole conversation about opt-out data in terms of participation in the tests. Well, this is trying to avoid people opting out from answering the questions so that we get better data about how different students are doing. So this is really a continuation of exactly what we were speaking about earlier today.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Thank
Senator
you.
Chamberlain, you had another question?
Yeah, one more question, Mr. Chair, thanks. So I thought I saw some, did we strike, I see we struck on 3.24, struck out immigrants, and I thought I saw somewhere, was there something with refugees, or just, was that just it? At any rate, that is crossed out now on 3.24. Is there a reason for that? We don't want to count immigrants, or what's the deal with that?
Mr. Chair and Senator Chamberlain, the language that is struck out in that paragraph is, again, it's trying to make the categories align with populations in a way that frankly don't give us 50 different categories so that it's just impossible for districts to administer. And so that is part of, that is the overall reason behind that. And if Mr. Crossan wants to talk specifically to, because there's an interaction with some data that's already being collected.
And Mr. Chair, Josh Crossan, these groups, I would say, are were removed simply because of the input from community holders. What I will say is that we're going to put a lot of emphasis on the stakeholder engagement, and these groups might be included based on the results of that report from those stakeholder groups.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Senator Chamberlain.
Thank you. Thank you for the answer. So I understand you're trying to narrow the scope, because I've seen the other list. It's fairly extensive, and it could go on forever. But I will follow up, Mr. Crossan, that because of some of the challenges we have in the schools, correct, that we want to figure out data is being collected here so we can learn, correct? Would we not also consider the immigrant, could we not work that in somewhere? Because that is pertinent, because if they're coming over, we have challenges, right? They come over from another country, and all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, they're in one of our schools. So the challenges of language, correct? ESL and everything else. So and cultural challenges. So I would think that would be important to know. Is there somewhere, somehow, that gets tracked or picked up? I know we're trying to narrow down the groups, but that would be, I think, something we want to know so we can understand the size and scope of that issue so we can address it in a better way. Any thoughts or comments on that? Thank you.
Thank you, Senator Kent.
Mr. Chair and Senator Chamberlain, again, in the effort to try to make this not be so unwieldy as that it affects the results that we end up getting out of the process, it was determined in working with assessment people both at the department and within some school districts, including particularly St. Paul, that this is information, as you mentioned, English language, that's already being collected in other ways. So that information is available, and so to call it out in this legislation about this particular aspect of it was seen as just repetitive.
One last question, Mr. Chair.
Senator Chamberlain.
Thank you. So just the final point of this. So is there a place in the statute now that if we want to try to break that out to see where those challenges might be and to focus on that, is there a place in this statute that was written last year and revised now that we could pull that out? Is there another category that we address or no? Does that make sense?
Not sure. I think
Mr. Crossan.
Yeah, and I think Josh Crossan at Allies. Mr. Chair, I would say, Senator Chamberlain, I would say that what we have here is a skeleton model of where we would like to see data disaggregation. After the rollout sites conclude their investigation on what works and what they should include in this legislation, it specifically states that those rollout sites would then give us information on what further groups should be included and what should not. So I would really depend on the stakeholder communities, the communities that are most impacted, and specifically the school groups, to let us know which groups they should include and which they should not.
And Mr. Chair, this is the final question. So,
Senator Chamberlain.
So then the rollout being a good idea because you're going to test it in those various areas in a few schools and a few sites. Then we can look at that and determine where we can go from there. Maybe we need to do something else. All right. Thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. And I just want to say I share Senator Chamberlain's concern. I think as we look at the situations, particularly of these two, you're right, Senator Kent, these may be collected under ESL, but I believe they're coming here under, very different circumstances as well. And maybe with a different set of backgrounds that may impact or skew the results. So, if we were to talk about an African American, a refugee from Somalia might be different than a native, or a Latino who recently immigrated may be different than one who's a second or third generation. And so I think I'm concerned that I think those are important distinctions to make.
And Mr. Chair, and when in the language regarding the rollout sites in the report, we are specifically looking for those kinds of recommendations to make sure that we're providing it. That is the intent, is to make sure that we are getting as close as we can to exactly what you're describing, because we recognize that students, and that's the whole point of the disaggregation of the data, because students who may fall under one larger umbrella, when you break that down, you get some pretty meaningful information and guidance. And so that is precisely what we're trying to do, and that's the point, and that's what we're going to keep working towards.
Okay. Senator Hoffman, you had a question.
I do. I just thank you for bringing this forward. It really is important. I know, and just in the school, the Union Hennepin School District, which, by the way, is the state's largest school district, and there's 128 different languages that are being spoken there. And I'll be real quick. This thing has, I knew he was going to do that. This has, I'm kidding. This has really got some statewide appeal to it. I know within our greater Asian community, both the Lao and Hmong, and I know Kai Ying is here, and Tao Mei Zhang is here, and I know those parents within the support groups really want to see that broader spectrum on it. And I think having a really good look at disaggregating this data, I think it's good. And I agree that first and second and sometimes third generation that the chair brings up is important information not to lose aspect on. And so thanks for bringing this forward, and thanks for doing it, because I think that it'll get us to ask the question why we're closing. Why is that achievement gap there? So good job.
Thank you. Senator Kent, you've got an advisory group here, and we talked about having a bill that didn't carry a fiscal note. Is the department going to have to incur any cost as this is drafted?
Mr. Chair, I believe through the amendment that removed that concern.
Is there staff that can speak to that, or Mr. Rooney, can you speak to that? Thank you and welcome to the committee. Please state your name for the record.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. My name is Caitlin Snyder, and I'm the Deputy Director of Government Relations. To the best of my knowledge, and please correct me if I'm wrong, Senator Kent, there has not been a fiscal note requested on this language.
Ms. Snyder, do you believe that this stakeholder group would, to be called by the commissioner, would require a fiscal note?
That is an interesting question.
I try.
I would say that I'm very thankful to everyone who was a part of discussing this language, and MDE was involved. There is an amount of work that is expected of the department in this, but there's an amount of work expected in every bill for the department. I would appreciate the stakeholder engagement. We think that that's an effective way to roll out the bill, and that there's not a it's more effective use of the state's money for us to have an effective rollout with this program versus having something be launched and then fail. I would also say that the delay will be welcome to all school districts, since nobody, as far as I'm aware, there are no school districts that are prepared to launch this school year. Overall, the department feels this is workable language to get to the legislative intent from last year.
Okay. Then I will be making sure that there's not a request for headcount next year to make sure that we're able to implement this. Are there any other questions from the committee? Okay, seeing none, Senator Kent moves that Senate File 1847 be laid over for possible inclusion. Members, that concludes our business for today. We will be convening tomorrow at 1. We'll be going through the draft omnibus bill, and then also hopefully being able to take up some additional work on Senator Eichhorn's bill tomorrow. Thank you, and we stand adjourned.